What a week. Elon Musk, Andrew Cuomo, and his Thanksgiving early with turkey. What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line. Great to be here with you. What a week. We started out the week with turkey going bananas, and of course, running into some big troubles, creating some possible contagion throughout the world. Of course, we're putting more tariffs on there, and their currency is collapsing. And of course, you've got Erdogan trying to, become the new central banker and trying to do what they do here, and he couldn't handle it. And the currency continued to fall. But I think one of the big things we always have to understand about any market is that free markets will find a bottom, okay? And when you try to manipulate, you create a much bigger problem. And I think that's something that we're going to soon be feeling here in a very similar fashion. But these are the issues when you try to manipulate and don't let the markets settle themselves. You don't let the markets create and find where the bottom is, and you try to create the bottom. It's the same thing as we talk about all the time, is you cannot borrow your way out of debt. Okay, that is exactly what is happening here. And of course, Erdogan is trying to create all kinds of problems. He's blaming us, and he's kind of threatening, and that's great from a country the size of Montana, whose GDP is virtually nothing. And yes, they are in a strategic place. But again, it comes back to they need us more than we need them. And again, it's not that I want to punish them. I just want to get everything set where we can get back to a free market system. And I think we saw a little bit of this start to happen on Friday. I texted out Friday morning that watch the 2 o'clock hour and the 4 o'clock hour to see that there might be some sort of announcement. And certainly at 2 o'clock, look what happened to the markets. The markets went straight up. The grain markets rallied. The meats rallied. Everything rallied. Why? Because there's potential trade done. And of course, that is what we're looking for. The strategy being used by the president is exactly the one he should use. We have a very strong economy. Other economies are collapsing. And again, he is not looking for, and we are not looking for something unreasonable. We're looking for free and fair trade. That's it. It's pretty simple. Basically, period, end of sentence. Let's get it done. And that would be great. And I think that's where we're going to end up with before it's all said and done. I think Mexico will be back. I think China will be in this week. I think Canada will be back. And I think we'll get everything going. And it'll be best for everybody to get the free market system going. And of course, Elon Musk, after his ridiculous tweet storm, the stock got clobbered last week, losing about 25% or 26% of its value. And of course, he gave a very emotional interview about his Ambien use, his not sleeping, his marijuana use, and that he was making mistakes. It's a very rough year. Well, you know what? When you're a billionaire and you try to create and you battle against others, especially the short sellers, and again, why does a CEO care about the short sellers? If the company is as good as he says it is, and certainly it's proven to be a company that has rallied, okay, then why would you worry about the short sellers? Again, this is somebody who lost his way as to what was the more important. Is it more important to battle the short sellers, or is it more important to build good cars? And I think this is going to be the end of him. I think he'll be removed as the CEO unless he can actually get this company private. But there are some very big investigations going on, and he's got, in my opinion, he's got very big issues that he's going to have to deal with. And I believe that before it's all done, he'll probably be ousted unless he can get this company private, okay? And we'll see how that plays out. But again, you can see, and we intimated this last week, that Tesla should be going a lot lower. And I think there's a lot more room to go on the downside from here. I think you could see a total meltdown in this company. And we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Again, we'll see what the news brings. We'll see what the traders bring. But I think what happened here brought even more ammo for the short sellers to go into it. So we'll see. In the meantime, the markets needed a big rally on Friday to push up for the week. Again, what you're really looking at here is a major consolidation pattern. We are consolidating near the tops, but you're in major consolidation. So what does that mean? It means that the markets are very indecisive right here. And we, again, more than likely, we'll probably break to new highs before melting down. But I would say that we have a much greater chance of having a much bigger move to the downside. I would look for, if we got this big rally off of the trade news, which I think will happen, I think that's creating a great selling opportunity, which would then reincarnate or repeat what happened in January. But this time, I don't think we come back. I think this time, this will be the start of a much more extended bear market for now. Again, remember what I always say, the markets go up 8% year over year, but there's going to be a major haircut that we'll have to come back from at a later date. And I think that's what you're looking at. I think that's the whole market setting up for it. We have consistently the theme and the theory that this time is different in the markets, this time is different. And again, I've heard guys that I know, which I used to respect, which I no longer have respect for. Because I heard somebody on Friday talk about copper and saying, well, this time this market is different because copper is not important this time because it's only used as an asset, as a collateralized asset. And I go, okay, so all of a sudden copper became not valuable. All of a sudden building became not valuable. Because we've known for years that China had to manipulate the price of copper because they were using it for loan value. But in the meantime, to hear somebody come out that I had respect for talk about saying this time is different and copper's not important and the metals are not important, to me is just another sign of idiocy where we're going to see a sudden change. And that is, again, I've heard advisor after pundit talking about this is a different market. It doesn't matter. Okay. And because we've got such massive debt, it doesn't matter. Okay. Because of all this, it doesn't matter. Because we've got the Fed, it doesn't matter. Well, guess what? It will matter. And you will be forced to make a decision against your portfolio. I hope you caught my hedging webinar yesterday, and you were able to understand what I'm talking about. And if you didn't and you'd like a copy of the recording, just email me at bubba@bubbatrading.com. But we've got markets. It looks like gold has finally found a bottom. Now, again, I would not aggressively run into gold here. I'm a buyer. Okay, but I'm always a buyer of gold, in small pieces. And again, I'm willing to hold it. I can also hedge it. But in the meantime, if you want to nibble a little bit around the 1180, I would not take a full position here. I would look to be a small buyer if you would do. Now, I do like a much bigger position in silver, which I would play. And you can play silver through a stock, AG. It's a $5 stock. You can play it through SLV, but I think, you can look if you want. And again, these are just thoughts that you may want to look into. These are not official recommendations, but they are thoughts of things that I'm looking at and that I'm going to trade that I'm already in. Oil had its 7th week in a row down. Okay. Now, oil is going lower, in my opinion, and I think it's going into the 50s. But I think now we still have what we call the backwardation formation. We still have December oil is more expensive than. October oil is more expensive than December oil. That's a bearish sign. That continues to be bearish. Of course, if you listen to some of the pundits, oil's going to 400. Okay, well, great. It'll go to 400 after it goes to 58 or lower. And I think we're going into the 50s before the year is out. And I think that next year we're going to see the 40s. But we'll see. Again, things can change. What I can see from today, is we should test 62. What I can see from beyond that would be we would test 58. Okay, that's all I'm going to commit to today because obviously things can change. But those are things that I'm playing and the way that I'm going to play those products. We saw the bond markets run up a little bit, but you can see that interest rates are starting to rise ever so slightly, which is going to cause some problems. This will tie into Turkey and other things that are happening, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And of course, the grain markets after last week's debacle had a nice rally this week, especially wheat, which remains the strongest. But you had soybeans almost recover all their losses. You had wheat recovered everything, and corn recovered a lot. So again, you're looking at things. I think we're going to have a very strong market going forward with the grains and with the livestock. And if you didn't notice, as we've been continuing to tout hogs here from 48, they're now 58, okay? They had about a 12% rally last week. Now, I think that the rally was a little bit overdone at the end of the week. I mean, we went limit up on Thursday and through expanded limits on Friday, but I'd be looking to be a buyer. I'd looking for a pullback to 55 to be a buyer on October hogs. The cattle both look really good. Fat cattle or feeder, live cattle close up towards the top. I would expect a little bit of a pullback. Feeders look solid. So the ag complex looks great. And I think as we talk about both markets look on edge, I think the equities look on edge to fall and grains and livestock look on edge to rise. I think that's what we would look for. Bitcoin made a bottom and came charging back, which I think is good. Again, we like the cryptocurrencies. Again, as I always say, don't get too crazy. Don't take the rent money to get in, but take the coffee money and get in. And believe it, you know, for $100, you can get some cryptocurrencies going. And we don't know which ones are going to be the ones that are going to survive. But you continue to have the media battle against it. You continue to have everybody telling you that it's a phony game. It sounds very familiar, you know, to other bubbles in the world. And this is the opposite. They're telling you that it is no good. So they're trying to predict ahead of time. In the meantime, we know the blockchain technology is phenomenal. We already know what's going on through some of the other things. And these tokens, this whole cryptocurrency world, it's real, it's going to last. And it's the only question is which are the coins that are really going to be good, which is why you have to be very cautious here and do your due diligence to find which ones that you want to be involved in. But certainly at some of these prices, I mean, you know, again, just full disclosure, I own EOS, I own IOTA, I own some Bitcoin, I own some Ethereum, I own some Litecoin, okay? And I don't, listen, I'm losing money, okay? Again, I always give full disclosure overall, but I'm a believer. And again, if they go to zero, it's not going to be the end of the world, okay? Oh, and I own some Monero also. So, but I think you just have to understand what's going on and how the markets are working. And you can see the manipulation. You can see the SEC not okaying the new ETFs that they want to come out with. Now, they're going to let them out eventually, okay? But they're trying to figure out their way through this whole thing. And that's another issue that we've got to look at. So there's a lot of things going on in markets, and we'll come back and talk about more on Bubba's Bottom Line. This is Todd Bubba Horowitz, Bubba's Bottom Line. We're going to step out for a break. We'll be right back with more of Bubba's Bottom Line. What's up, everybody? Did you happen to catch my hedging webinar yesterday? If you did not and you'd like to get a recording of it, please email me at bubba@bubbatrading.com. Just say, I want the recording. I'll send it to you. It's free. Again, we like to help educate. And also, don't forget about it's the school year is starting, highschoolinvesting.com. If you want to help us out, please go to Patreon, patreon.com/Bubba Trading and help us out there. It'd be great. And I thank all those who've already done so. And also, don't forget to catch the Bubba Show every day from 4 to 5 Eastern at libertytalk.fm. Now, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line with me. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horowitz with you. And as always, it is great to be here and a pleasure. And I think, you know, one of the questions we talked about Turkey, and is Turkey a harbinger of things to come? Okay. And I've used this line all week. You might have already heard it. But Turkey, with the GDP of Indiana or Montana, means nothing in the big scheme. But people lend money. U.S. banks have lent. There's a whole bunch of money being lent, which brings the contagion out. But I look at it like the big Jenga puzzle. And as you're trying to pull out the piece, is this the final piece? We don't know what the final piece of this debt bomb is going to be. We don't know if Turkey means anything at the time, but I continue to say, and it is my opinion, that the banks do not have enough in reserve. The banks are overlent, they're overexposed, and they're banking on the Federal Reserve to bail them out again when they go kablooey. And you can bet your sweet potatoes that they're going to go kablooey once again, because that is the model. Remember, when a bank can lend out at 10 to 1 on their supposed reserve, they are creating new money to begin with, okay? They are lending money and collecting on money that they don't have, right? So we are creating new money that way as well. So if they overextended, it will create another mess. And you've already got no doc loans again. You've got 3% down for housing. You've got these banks are buying up bad paper every single day. And I happen to know some inside information, not illegal inside information. I just happen to know one of my guys in business that is not a subprime lender, but a lender to higher risk. And the banks are buying those loans up too. So again, we're just seeing an instant replay from a different camera lens. So could Turkey be it? Yeah, it could be. I wouldn't be so concerned. And again, we know one thing for sure: the markets are not going to announce themselves. One day they're going to come in, they're just going to start going down, and the next rally is not going to come back. Is this the one? Well, so far, Monday we had some selling all the way through, and then by the end of the week we were back up again. And I said I think trades are going to settle, so I think that'll create the rally. But after that, then I think there's problems. Okay, because you've got so much external dollar debt, okay? Now, again, the dollar continues to rise. That creates even a bigger problem throughout the globe. That's why the emerging markets are collapsing, okay? Now, think about this for a minute, okay? We've used this example with companies, but let's use it with countries now, okay? If you're a small emerging market and you know that you can borrow money from the United States from a bank, okay, let's say at 3%, and you know that out in the street you're lending it in your area at 6%, okay, you're making the 3-point spread for in theory no risk, okay, and that's the issue. This is where we always get into the same problem. Everybody tries to do the arbitrage, okay, and of course all of a sudden the dollar starts to rise, their currency starts to fall, and that spread starts to narrow, and all of a sudden they're upside down in the spread because their currency doesn't cut it anymore. This is one of the This is one of the issues, which is why the Fed has tried so strongly to control the dollar and keep rates down just for this reason. But one thing we know, when markets are big enough and they're free markets, like the bond market, like the currency market, they will overtake the Fed and the manipulation, and that's what you're starting to see. That is what's going to create the contagion. That is what's going to create the meltdown, is the inversion, because what happens is when their currency no longer covers the note, they go upside down. They can't pay. So now, not only can the customer not pay, the borrower can't pay, the lender can't pay, and you got a mess. Okay, so you can figure that out. Okay, so you can try to measure these rate hikes all you want, but again, just see what happened in Venezuela with the socialism program, but with the 1,000,000% inflation, okay? These things just happen. They do not announce themselves. They do not tell you that they're going to happen. They just show up. And there's so many things that are starting to show up. You've got the big SPEC funds, okay, that are never short gold, that have their biggest short position ever, okay? Now, again, what does that mean? Well, we said earlier, we think gold has reached the bottom. And this is one of the reasons we think that gold has reached the bottom, is because you've got people not used to being short gold. And what do you think is going to happen if gold starts to pop? Okay? They're going to be forced to cover. All right? You want to watch, in this commitment of traders, you want to watch the smart money commercials, okay, that understand this all the time and that are always short the gold. And the banks who are always short gold are not that short. They're almost narrow, okay? So again, you're seeing a potential here for an explosion. Now, this is not Lehman Brothers, okay? This is not a repeat of all of that. But again, markets don't announce themselves there. It's a very similar situation. And is being called, we are the lab rats in the biggest monetary experiment in history, okay? And it's not going to work. Again, this goes back to the theory that this time is different. This time is not different. We know these things do not work. This is the problem when you can think that you can continue to print your way out of debt, okay? This is why the emerging market crisis will hit the U.S., because our monetary policy stinks, because we continue to be willing to print new money, okay, to satisfy old debt. That's why this is a big old Ponzi scheme. There's no way around it. You can try to hide it all you want. You can dress it up like a pig. You can you can put lipstick on a pig, as they say. It's still a pig. Okay, what they have done has been totally inconsistent and wrong, but it's done for a reason, because it keeps the rich getting richer and continues to pound down on the middle class, which is why, as you ever watch Trish Regan, she calls it the hourglass economy, because the middle class are the ones that are getting squeezed here because of these crappy policies. All right, again, just look what's going on, and if you take the this time is different mentality out of it, okay, copper is collapsing. Okay, why is copper collapsing? That's one of the biggest components in building, Dr. Copper. Okay, housing, okay, is not making their numbers anymore. All right, so what does that tell you? Okay, yeah, retail sales were okay, but again, they were so depressed. You know, it's one thing when you're beating numbers over numbers. Okay, and it's another thing when you're beating less than expectations. Okay, it's funny. I had dinner last night with a very good friend of mine who runs a big store, and he's been setting records. Since he took over 25 years ago, he's been setting records every year. And last year had his biggest year, record after record after record. And this year he can't get back to the records. I said, well, unfortunately, you don't have a big enough place now to continue to match those demands. You worked it out, but he's on already much higher expectations. We've taken the retail sales and we have almost no expectation. So it's hard not to beat no expectations, okay? And I think that's a problem, okay? And I think when you look at it, okay, I think you should be thinking about the fear of the debt bubble, okay? Again, we continue to ignore it, and you know, listen, we're contributors, right? You're borrowing, you buy a new car on paper, you buy a house, you borrow. Eventually that debt's got to be paid back, okay? And of course, it's not just us, it's the rest of the society, the rest of the world that continues to borrow. And when you continue to borrow and borrow and borrow, okay, eventually that debt bomb has to explode. Now, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, so it doesn't mean that it's going to explode tomorrow, but it is a problem, okay? And I think that what's going to happen is one day we're going to wake up, okay, and the markets are just going to collapse, okay? And again, I'm a firm believer that we will come back from that collapse and that the markets will go up 8% year over year like they always have. But it's going to shake out a whole series of investors, a whole series of unhedged, unprepared, unsuspecting. Because when you look at the market action right now, when you look at low volume, that is a signal that it's only the retail money that's coming in. Okay, low volume is not commercials trading. Low volume is IRAs, 401ks, and things that's the kind of money that's flowing in from there. Okay, the individual investor. What you're seeing now is the big guys, they've been selling and getting out, okay? They're shorting the market. You heard one of the big banks last week call for a 10% rally in this market for the rest of the year, okay? Based on if the trade wars are taken care of. And I go, I would bet anything, I didn't name them, I won't name them now, you know what it is, all I have to do is look at the headlines, okay? And this is my opinion, but from trading against them, in the pits for all those years, knowing how they operate, I would bet a lot of money that they're already short the market and getting shorter. Again, as we talk about here often, is many markets are spoofed. Now, again, I have no problem with spoofing. You want to show a hand, you want to take a chance to spoof the market, that's fine, okay? If you're willing to put in a big enough bid because you actually want to be a seller, okay, so you want to force other buyers, if you take the chance of getting hit and you have to buy that stuff, I have no problem with it. You spoof your house. Anything that you're selling, you're spoofing yourself. You're trying to create a better value. So I don't have a problem with it. What I do have a problem with is it's when it's somebody who controls public sentiment, okay? And then gets everybody to buy into it and they create this big monstrosity. They did the same thing in oil. They did the same thing in many things, which created a much bigger problem. In the meantime, this is Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horowitz, and of course, I want to remind you, we're going to step out here for a break, but if you didn't catch my hedging webinar yesterday and you'd like to see it, just email me at bubba@bubbatrading.com. It's free. I'll send it to you. I have a film clip on it. It's an hour long, so if you'd like to see it, I'll be more than happy to email it to you. Just email me at bubba@bubbatrading.com. Check out my high school investing program if you'd like to help us. We are in our 9th year. We're struggling, though, to get through this year. If you'd like to help us, go to Patreon, patreon.com/Bubba Trading. And of course, don't forget to catch the Bubba Show every day from 4 to 5 Eastern at LibertyTalk.fm. Now let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line and my commentary. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horwitz. And as you know, every week I find something to complain about or cheer about or bitch about. And, you know, I'll tell you something. I look at around this country today, and I love America. I love the country. I love who we are, and I love what we're trying to do right now. And then you have to hear people like Andrew Cuomo, who says America was never great. Okay, now you're going to tell me that this jackass has stooped to this level because he can't beat Cynthia Nixon from what's the name? Sex and the City. Okay, Sex and the City star. You know, you're going to tell me that you want to say that America was never that great. Okay, your family, you came with a silver spoon in your mouth. You came from a family of immigrants who brought you into the greatest country in the world, and now you want to talk that America is not great and was never that great. Okay, I wish you would go somewhere else. I wish you would go move to Venezuela or get the hell out of the United States of America. Anybody. We know we have issues in this country. We know there's things going on in this country. But for a public official, okay, to come out and say America was never that great, okay, look at where we came from over the last 200 years, okay? Look at the progress we've made. Yes, there's a lot of warts in this country. There's no question about that. I mean, we talk about it on a regular basis and I'm not, excuse me, I'm not going to get into the different things. But the main issues, I mean, from segregation to the way we treated women, to the way we treated children, to everything that we've done, but we've made progress all the way up, okay? And yes, there's still problems, but America is still great and getting greater. And if we didn't have people like you talking down the country, if we didn't have all of the people that are out there trying to bash this country, instead of working together to make it great, okay, and to make it greater, then we wouldn't have the issues that we have. But of course, that's to you to try to win an election. You want to talk down what's going on in this country and you want to create what's even worse. You should be ashamed of yourself. And again, if it were up to me, I'd like to send you packing. This is Todd Bubba Horwitz. Bubba's Bottom Line. Everybody have a great week, a great weekend. We'll see you back here tomorrow with Bubba's Daily Update. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.